What's up, Jay?
Oh, we're here for another one.
Who'd you bring with you?
We have Richard Mann and we have Matt. Matt, I don't know your last name, actually.
Avery.
Matt Avery from Field and Stream.
Field and Stream.
Couple legends.
Field and Stream.
Field and Stream. Ever heard of it?
Yeah. I didn't know it was still a thing, honestly.
Yeah. Well, they know a little better than us, but yeah, it's
The magazines.
it went away for a while, and I think it was just. I'm sure we'll get into it, but I think it was just reacquired, and I've got the first. I think you said the second issue just shipped, but I know I have the first one. It's pretty cool.
That's so exciting. I mean, because like everyone else, I've been seeing Field and Stream and newsstands and looking through it since I was younger.
But you read it at the barbershop from the time you were born, right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, anywhere. Yeah, the doctor's office, anywhere that there were men that did manly things. It was around. Yeah. But yeah, so that's so exciting that the printed issue is back. You know, everybody thought printed magazines would die, just like every store would go out of business because you buy everything on Amazon.
Yeah, it seems like there's this weird, I mean, I'm sure it happens throughout history, but this kind of resurgence of older things, I guess. I don't know, like prints coming back. 270 is a thing again. I know a bunch of young guys are shooting 270 now. Like things that are older that went away.
Cartridges.
Records.
Yeah.
My daughter's 17, and she's a Taylor Swift fan. God help her. But
she's not alone.
Yeah,
apparently.
but she buys all her records, and now she's going to like these small little record shops and buying old records. You know, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath,
cool.
and it just.
I've always had that because even when I was a kid, being 50, you know, records were starting to go away. But I have my parents' record collection from the 60s.
Yeah.
So the 60s and 70s, and so I have all that great rock albums from the 60s and 70s, and then all the 8-tracks, but they don't last.
No, they don't.
So I still have an 8-track, and I have
tape gets all wound.
They start. So I only have probably had 30 of those as well. And there's only 2 that still work. Yeah. Tapes broken and all those.
My dad gave me a box of his tapes from when he was in the military in Germany, and he was there in the late 70s, early 80s, and crazy stuff in there. Yeah, but it's cool. It's all also cool.
Yeah, it is.
But I see that resurgence of older things. I think it's
well, for me, I travel so much on. Everybody's hearing that.
Yeah.
Is it
We're good now.
Maybe a phone or something?
Yeah, it could be. Could be signals coming.
But I fly so much that or I'm in Africa. I don't have Wi-Fi or cell service half of my life now. So I always take printed magazines with me in my bag when my carry-on.
Yeah.
Because I could be sitting there and, the movie thing goes down on the plane, the Wi-Fi. Oh, you buy Wi-Fi and it works for 2 hours of a 16-hour flight.
Yeah.
So, you got to have something printed to read.
Or drugs.
Yeah, drugs.
One or the other.
I tend to go with alcohol as my choice, but not you hippie.
Not me. No, I just raw dogged the plane.
Yeah, well, so Field and Stream, how long you guys been writing? What's your backgrounds and stuff?
Matt, why don't you start? You were kind of one of the senior editors there.
Yeah,
he was. What are you? You're like 26. How are you a senior editor?
Yeah, so
he knew the right guy.
Yeah, so I was a senior editor for about 5 years, and then I just went freelance about a year and a half ago. But before that, I kind of got a weird background. I went to art school and kind of was doing that for a while, and then just started hunting more and writing more. Yeah, and just kind of threw in an application one day. And then
that's how you got the job?
That's how I got the job. Yeah, I'd done some guiding before that.
So what were you doing for work before this?
Just a little bit of guiding. I did some bus driving, just all little stuff.
What kind of guiding?
I worked for a season out in Idaho. So Western big game.
Oh, yeah.
And then also did some stuff in Kentucky for whitetails. And then a little bit for a couple weeks, I guided with this guy in Eastern Kentucky for elk. So that was a cool, that was a really interesting experience.
So there's tags available in Kentucky?
Yeah, there's the old strip mines. Oh. So they put elk on those strip mines. And it's just once you get up on top of them, it just looks like Western grassland.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then they'll dip down into... you'll be in a oak forest and they'll come and eat acorns. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know there were tags anywhere available in the East.
Yeah. When we were in Tennessee, we didn't know. We went to that Gun Owners of America thing in Tennessee, and they're like, there's elk out here. And I was like, what kind of elk?
There are a lot of elk they've introduced there. They've done well.
Well, they introduced them in West Virginia 5 years ago.
They did?
Strip mines, reclaimed strip mines, same thing. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, because I think they're even in North Georgia now. They've made their way from Tennessee into North Georgia. I mean, I would flip out if I were in my stand and saw an elk.
That happens sometimes. I think they like kind of break out of the zone. Yeah. And if they do, I mean, I might be wrong about this, but I think that they're fair game because they want them to stay in that kind of that one area.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, in Virginia, I think it's changed, but in Virginia, where they border Kentucky, your deer tag would be fine for an elk for a while. So, like on the first day of deer season, everybody was right on the border wanting to hunt, maybe an elk.
Sure.
But I think they changed that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the first time I encountered something like that was I was in West Texas hunting mule deer, and a giant elk comes by, like 100 yards from us. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so he's like, yeah, we have elk here. I'm like, well, clearly. And I'm thinking, oh, you can't shoot them.
No.
So the thing gets like 700 yards away, and he's like, hey, do you want to hunt that elk? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, it's non-native, so you can shoot them here. There's no seed. It's like, why didn't you say that? Yeah. And we went after it, and of course fucked off. We never found
the same license you use to hunt feral hogs in Texas, you can use to shoot an elk with.
That's
crazy.
Insane.
That's wonderful.
And there's some monster
like
elk
some stuff about Texas.
I just heard about the elk in Arizona. There's a spot on one of the reservations that they've got 400-inch elk everywhere.
Is this like the horses of New Jersey?
Could be. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who this. It was someone from the Phoenix area, but obviously it's native land, so to get on there is impossible. Or you could pay.
They sell hunts. Yeah,
you could pay
a lot of those.
Money.
Yeah, like the Taos Pueblo, I think, sells hunts. And they have like bighorn hunts too and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, big elk. Yeah, huge elk.
Okay. Well, so you get this job. At Field and Stream. What happens?
Learning a lot really fast. Yeah, because I've been writing before, and I was just like, I'm just gonna send my stuff out to different editors and see if they'll hire me. And if you're only writing for yourself and you're not getting any feedback, you're like, I'm the best. Like I got this covered. I know how to write. And so I got there and I just remember just getting stuff kind of marked up, and I was editing a lot of copy too. So one thing that was kind of funny was I'm allergic to fish, and so I don't fish a lot. I didn't grow up fishing a lot because of that. But I was really nervous about that when I first got to the office because I was like, I hope they don't just fire me on the spot for that. And first stuff I'm starting to get, it's springtime. It's just like the best bass lures ever. Edit that. And I'm just reading stuff about bass. I have no idea about this stuff, but I'm getting through it. And then finally someone realizes that I just don't know a lot about fishing. And then next thing I know, I'm just like, they're like, okay, put him on a plane. Like every fishing trip I'm going on. And so they're really good about it. They just sent me everywhere to fish for like a year.
Well, being allergic to fish, what?
Well, I can touch them and, catch and release. I just can't eat them.
Can't. So it's ingesting.
So, yeah. So, first trip I did was a striper fishing trip. Then I was out in, Yellowstone catching trout. And,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was cool. I mean, it was like lifetime fishing trips all in a year, kind of. And now I fish at home. I live around a lot of good trout streams. So,
nice.
So, yeah, it's become something that I do.
Yeah, you're up in the Catskills, you said,
yeah? Yeah, a lot of the time, yeah.
He was actually my editor for a little while.
Really?
Yeah.
When did they stop printing the magazine?
So we got, it was, let me see, it was a few years ago. So a company named Bonnier used to own us and Outdoor Life and a few other publications.
Yeah.
There was a sale that went through to another company, and their strategy at the time was to just say, okay, we're going to just double down on online stuff only. And so everybody who had worked on print, it was all focused online and just on a lot of different, whatever that, before we had done less online stories, and then we just ramped that up a lot. But then they were sold again. The latest group really wanted to bring back a lot of the stuff. I think it was a great fit.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to bring back a lot of the stuff that we editors really loved about the magazine and the storytelling and stuff like that. And right away they were like, we're putting out a print issue. So that was probably about a year ago, I want to say, maybe a little bit less that started happening. But yeah, the first issue looked great. It's, the guys that are there, I've always felt like Field and Stream as an outdoor magazine can stand toe to toe with any other magazine, no matter the subject. And the people who work on it and the writers who contribute to it. I think it was such a privilege to work there as an editor, but to watch it go back to print, that's really where it is at its best.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So is it monthly now or quarterly or?
It's 2 issues a year right now.
2.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and they're big, they're like coffee table books.
Yeah.
They're,
oh, wow.
they're beautiful.
Really?
Yeah. Beautiful issues.
Yeah. 100 and some pages.
Something like that. Yeah. They're huge. And it's
I've not seen this.
Super cool. You can get them at Barnes and Noble when they're out and stuff too.
Yeah. And great photography. It's
cool. Yeah. I was curious about, so we've talked about it in the shop, but when they came back out, a couple of us were excited to grab the new issues. And I've heard, my grandfather or his friends or whatever talk about, pre-internet, obviously. I know a lot of these companies, and we've talked off air a little bit about it, but everyone went internet exclusive. Do you think that it gives Field and Stream some more merit to go back to print? Because to bring it to what my grandfather and his friends would talk about is like, you'd read about a Jack O'Connor hunt and you wouldn't get a follow-up for, 2 months or 3 months. Or you'd have to wait to get that to find out. So you're excited for the mail to come in, or like, Jack O'Connor and Elmer Keith are arguing about something and you don't know about it until, so it was that incentive to get excited about it. And I think, with the internet, you could just go get it. And I feel like it gives these companies more merit to have that, whether it be quarterly or two a month or 2 a year or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely slows down so much stuff is so accessible now. And I can speak for myself. It's great to have all that stuff on hand, but at the same time, there's times when I just want to like slow down and unplug and just, read a book or read a magazine. And it's like ebooks, they kind of caught on and they kind of didn't. People still want to read real books. And I think what's nice about having that print issue too is that there's just stuff that you kind of can't do on the internet, or you can do it, but it doesn't translate as well. The internet's great for pictures, video, podcasts, stuff like that, and really great little like quick service pieces, like stories, like how-to stories or gear stories and stuff like that. But yeah, that storytelling, that's really something you want to just sit with. And also, like you said, a lot of the audience is like, I remember going to hunting camps when we didn't have the print again, and they were like, we liked having this in our camp because we don't have access to the internet here. Yeah. And it would just sit around in camp for a while, and people like to collect them too. So
I think it's a theme of hunting. One of the best parts, Africa. You go to Africa a lot, and I think one of the best parts about Africa is in the evening around the fire ring, because everybody tells the stories and you get to hear the stories. And it was the same way at deer camp. The cool part about deer camp was every evening you would come back and you would hear the stories. And that's a big part of hunting, is that story.
I think for everyone that's serious about it, they would agree.
Yeah, and the internet, that doesn't convey, and most of it's shorter, short content, 1,000 words or something. And to be able to sit down and read a well-written story about a cool adventure that you're interested in, I think that's just an aspect of hunting that we all kind of gravitate to.
I think so, because for me, hunting is, what it's evolved into for me is an adventure. Excuse me. Like, I still love whitetail hunting, but when I started like expanding on that and going to other countries and things where I haven't been, and types of hunting that I've never been exposed to. And you're right. In Africa, like me taking people over there, being in camp with people, I love the adventure, but the storytelling at the end of the day is like you get more adventure. You get to hear their adventure.
Yeah.
Because, especially in places like Africa, you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, see, I've got a theory on that. So the first time you go to Africa is an unrepeatable experience.
Yeah.
You can never duplicate that first trip. And it's usually a plains game hunt, something fairly simple. And then you just keep advancing, and you ultimately end up with dangerous game. But what you're really trying to do is you're trying to recreate what you felt that first time, and you can't do it. The closest I've found is taking other people that I know and then sharing their first experience.
That's interesting. But yeah, I think that's a good point. People who are well seasoned with hunting or anything, or maybe it's a maturity or experience thing, before you get to a point where, if it's someone you care about or you can expose them to it, it's more rewarding in some ways than you doing it.
Yeah, so like Matt hadn't been till last year, and I took him last year, And we actually did 2 hunts, and I got to take him to my friend's place, which is things are done a little different than your average paid for safari. And I got to share that with Matt and get to see his reaction to experience the things that really impacted me the first time I went.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things I try to tell people because I didn't want to go to Africa for a long time. You know, mostly it was like propaganda and bullshit that you hear here.
Yeah.
And so I understand when people are that way with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, because, you know, it's like, oh, Africa's dangerous. And I'm like, dangerous in what way? No, it's not. Like,
no, they're all scared of coming to the U.S., which is the funniest thing.
And I think is probably true. You know, when I talk about my love for Africa, a lot of it is it's the adventure, but the freedom, which goes along with adventure. I don't think you really have one without the other. But me being there, I am so free there, and I would have never understood how we have fucked up so much of our freedom here until I was somewhere like that. You know, my house is in the mountains, an hour away from a town. You are on your own. There is nobody to tell you anything you can or can't do or whatever it is. And I'm like, I could be a billionaire in America, and I don't have a percentage of this freedom.
Well, just think about every big game animal you kill in the States, you got to check it in.
Yeah.
You know, like in West Virginia, and West Virginia,
you get one a year.
You're a pretty free state. And what we can do, we were talking the other day, I mean, I can have 3 ARs loaded with suppressors in my truck and carry 2 handguns, and I'm completely legal.
Yeah.
In Africa, you just shoot stuff. You don't have to get your phone out and check it in immediately. You don't have to put a tag on it. I mean, I'm not saying there's not any laws that govern what happened there. But it's just, you're right, it's just free.
Yeah, you have freedom in everyone. It's not just the hunting to me. Like, Africa is very free, and it's still, you know, it's not like it was 100 or 150 years ago when we read the stories about, you know, guys starting to explore and hunt there. But there are parts where it's still wild and free, and the more I'm there and the more I hunt, those are the places I gravitate towards. And you're right, it probably is. It's like I told you guys a story about when I was 6 years old and realized I love women because I saw Linda Carter as Wonder Woman on TV. Like, I've probably been trying to duplicate that experience my whole life. and so it's probably in most things that you end up having a passion for. But, you know, I didn't grow up. I mean, it sounds like you grew up probably hunting or outdoors.
I mean, I kind of came into it, like a little bit. You know, I came into it like in my early teens.
Yeah.
I had my grandfather hunted a lot, and so he'd take me out, and I had this biology teacher. It was actually cool. We had a bunch of shoulder mounts in our class because guys had shot stuff and brought them back to donate for specimens as just like scientific specimens.
Oh, that's
and there was like an impala in there, and there was some cool stuff.
Oh yeah,
and so we started talking more about hunting in class after class, and then I'd go hunt with my grandpa, and you know I was probably like 14, 15, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard, how about you? Your background and start hunting in West Virginia. You may have started hunting when you were walking. I don't know.
Well, believe it or not, I was hunting before I was born. You know, everybody says they've been hunting all my life. My mom and dad were big coon hunters with hounds.
In West Virginia?
Yeah. And the year that she was pregnant with me, she was hunting with my dad, coon hunting. And there's this thing, if you're a coon hunter, you know it. It's called marking the pups. So the way you mark your pups is you have a bitch that's carrying a litter, and you shoot a coon out to her while she's carrying the litter, and then that's supposed to mark the pups and make them real coon dogs, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess I was marked, you know. But the writing thing, so I mean, I hunted obviously since before I was born, but the writing thing, I always wanted to write for magazines. I don't really know how to explain. That's what I read, you know, Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, all that. And when I was a senior in high school, my English teacher kept me after class one day, and she said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I want to write for Field and Stream and Outdoor Life. And she said,
you did then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And she said, you're failing. You need to find another career path. So I got up out of the desk, and I went to the guidance counselor's office, and I said, I need a new English teacher. I'm still not very good at English, but
so you always had that passion.
Always, yeah. And
it could be like a lot of passions. You know, like I don't understand all of how mine happened, and maybe you don't. It's just something inside of us that like drives us as men or whatever to pursue something and not even be able to explain it.
Well, what I was reading was so impactful to me. I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to do that. And then I went in the military, became a cop, and started writing on the side. And then did that for about 13 years. And then I just quit and started writing full time.
Why did you become a cop?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I guess it was the way I was raised, help people, do the right thing.
So those were the intentions. It wasn't, I'm having a kid, I need benefits.
No. I actually had a better job than a cop, a better paying job when I took that.
Yeah.
I come off active duty and took a job working in a jail, which is the worst. Well, it's like a stepping stone, And
is it going to jail?
Yeah. But correctional officer, police officer was kind of a stepping stone. You get in and and then I become a cop, and then did that for 6 years, and then I went to work with the railroad police as a special agent.
Yeah,
which was kind of different.
I had a friend of mine that was also one.
Yeah, and we're in Georgia.
Jason Vincent with Field Ethos. So he was in South Carolina, I believe.
Oh, it was probably with Norfolk Southern.
Probably.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I just started writing on the side, and I remember I sold my first article to North American Hunter for $100. First article I ever submitted, and I thought, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be rich and famous, And then I sold a couple more, and then I couldn't get anybody to buy anything. And John Barsness is, I think, one of the best outdoor gun writers that we've ever had. He lives in Montana. And I really liked his work. And I sent him this article I'd written. And I just, at the bottom, I just wrote a note. If this sucks, tell me and I'll just quit. I'll find something else, And I said, I've sent it to all these magazines and nobody wants it. He sends me back a letter and says, change this. And he said, I think.
How awesome for him to do that.
Never met him, Yeah. And he said, I think you got some talent. Make these changes. Maybe that'll help. And I did. I sent it to a magazine, and they called me and offered me a column. And I was like, holy shit, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? Yeah. But, and then when I got to, I was making about half of what I was making as a cop on the side as a writer. I just did the math. If I can make this much money part-time, I can probably make a living at it,
Yeah.
So I just quit and started doing it full-time.
That's wonderful. It's such a wonderful thing because I think, unfortunately, a lot of men, come to that crossroad in their life at some point and they're afraid to take that step. And then it's just regret. Once we get really old, it's, oh, God, I should have done that. What's the worst thing that could happen? You just go back to being a cop. That's the worst thing.
And it's funny. I wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
I enjoyed being a cop. And I told you last night when we were having dinner, after about 2 years of just writing and quit being a cop, my wife told me one day, she said, you used to be an asshole. And it just hit me. I'm happier now, way happier than I was. And, we talked about how the education system kind of pushes kids to get a job, good benefits. And when my son was growing up, he got interested in cameras and videography and stuff. And I told him, I said, dude, you love that. Just do that. Don't try to go get it. Just do that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's what I try to preach to my kids. I was telling you that. And, especially my son's real creative and things like that. We share some of that. And keeping him away from everything that tells all of my children that, oh, this is the way you need to do. You do this. And it's like, you guys have had very good lives. You're never going to starve to death. It's like, just pursue a passion. Well, I think I would be so miserable and I can understand you being a cop. It's like what you have to deal with every day, and not just the government side of it, but who you're dealing with and dealing with people a lot of times at the lowest part of their lives. It depressed me. Yeah, but doing something that you have a passion for and that you would do for free. Of course you're going to be in a better mood and nicer and happier. Yeah, that's what I want for my kids. It's like you're all smart enough to make enough money to live. And when you have too much money, then everybody's trying to take it from you. It's like
the downside to doing that. Well, maybe it ain't a downside, but I'm unemployable now. I mean,
I always have been.
The atmosphere you guys have here. I'm thinking this would be a great place to work, But then I'm thinking I ain't gonna get up at 8 o'clock and drive over here. You know, I don't care how cool it is.
To me, it's almost like hunting. I got no problem getting up in the morning at 4:30 if we're on a buffalo hunt or hunting kudu or whatever. If it's the kudu rut, it's hard for me to go to sleep. And I still 31 years, I still feel the same way about this. Like I don't set an alarm in the morning. And, what I do is I don't have any blinds or shades on my windows because, we're so far east and north. It gets daylight very early here typically. And I can't wait to get to work every morning. Like, I love it.
Yeah, but it's not like you have a job. It's it's your passion, It's what you want to do. That's the difference. I
do say, like, I've felt like I've had a job for 2 years in my life. And it was the second year after I sold my company to Remington and the second year at SIG. Like the honeymoon was over. The first year they leave me alone. We'd get to do cool stuff. And then you work for a corporation and you got a bunch of idiots making decisions. And I see how people at a big company and stuff just get disenfranchised and, just kind of miserable. Because like I want to do and accomplish things. And it's not, making extra money to have a beach house.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that. Interesting. What do you got, Jim?
I was just going to say, growing up, you were reading the Field and Stream, you were reading the Outdoor Lives, and maybe it was different for you where you kind of found your way into it. Did you have, I guess, like when I was younger, I wasn't specifically looking at writers or authors or whatever. I generally gravitated towards specific ones without knowing that. But did you, when you were younger, reading these, I know you mentioned one, but were there guys that you were reading in Outdoor Life or Field and Stream? They were like,
definitely, absolutely,
definitely,
yeah. I think the one that influenced me the most was Finn Aagaard, who was a professional hunter in Kenya until they closed the hunting in Kenya, and then he moved to Texas and started doing some guiding, some exotic stuff there. But he started writing. He fell in with Craig Boddington and started writing and. The way he wrote was so experience based. It wasn't conjecture or speculation. It was, I used this. This is how it worked, and he made his conclusions based on experience instead of like the old gun writer. Like, for a perfect example is everybody says you can't kill a deer with a 223, right? And
well, they've never poached before.
But Finn took a 223 and shot a bunch of deer with it and said, yeah, this works. Why not?
Yeah. But it is. And I'm sure it's every industry. People just believe these things they have no basis to other than that's what they've heard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, that makes sense. Of course it's true.
With guns, it's like especially,
Oh, yeah.
There's so much out there that's just not accurate. And then
so much, and people believe it.
It's true.
Well, that's something that, it's been happening forever. Like, I wasn't around for either of them really, but like reading some of the stuff that Elmer Keith wrote and then Jack O'Connor, like Jack O'Connor's crushing all these animals at 270. Elmer Keith's like, that's a coyote gun. But then is admitting like, I'm shooting elk backwards. I'm shooting them in the ass or bear at 500 yards on the run in the ass. So I need a big bullet. And it's like, what was the quote? Was it Dave Petzel you said the quote the other night?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So like my favorite quote, I wish I'd thought of it, but Dave Petzel, who's been the rifle editor at Field and Stream for
forever.
Ever?
Yeah.
He wrote, if you can't shoot, it doesn't matter what you use. But if you can shoot, it doesn't matter what you use. And I think that's one of the best.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about it some yesterday, and like the male ego. And oh man, I love reading some of the stuff about me online. But I don't take anything for face value with our industry. And one thing I've had is, I didn't grow up with guns, and so the way I got introduced was, like different than you guys if you grow up hunting and stuff. My family wasn't into it. And then very early on in my career, I've always had brilliant engineers work with me. And so, I would say some naive, ignorant thing about whatever. And we, as you guys have seen here, it's all like just testing. And we come up with an idea and we do a thing and we break it and then we go use it. And so that's the way I look at it now is I don't like we developed the 300 blackout cartridge and now 8.6, and it's not like those aren't necessarily my favorite cartridges or they're the only ones. Like I don't have that attitude about it. It's like just a tool you put in the toolbox that we were talking about yesterday with the male ego stuff. You listen to people and they'll tell you, oh yeah, that won't work for that, or I do this far. And like everybody's full of shit and lies, basically. It's like people aren't honest about how far they shoot or what they do. And I just learned that by, all the hunting that I do now. And it starts out, I got into hunting through testing ammo. And when I hear people say things, it's like I've shot enough animals now to know, but it's like people aren't honest about how far they shoot. That's when we 8.6. Okay, we want super subsonic 300 meters. 99.9% of everything happens in 300 meters. So let's make the best, most compact, lightest gun that will consistently do that job. Mm-hmm. And that's so foreign to everybody. Well, what if I need to take a shot at 700 meters? Like
get closer.
Yeah, walk. Yeah.
Or you've never done that. So why would you carry this thing around your whole life for this one opportunity that you're probably not going to take anyway? Or get closer.
Yeah, I was telling Matt, you watch all these. I mean, this long range hunting thing is out of control,
and I love that too. Actually, like, I don't hate that. I like it.
But you watch these guys on these long range hunting shows; they'll make a shot at like 800 yards, and they're jumping up and high fiving, and they're hugging each other. And I'm like, you know why they're doing that, don't you? They didn't think they was going to hit it, And to me, the rule of a hunter is don't take a shot that you're not confident in making. If you can't, get closer.
But you're right, like 223. I mean. Bullets are so good now.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
Barnes 223 bullet, I would shoot just about anything with that. And I was skeptical too until I started doing it. And I was like, ooh, like 300 blackout on big pigs with a marginal bullet is very marginal. Mm-hmm. That Barnes 110 is a different situation. So I'm like, the Barnes solid copper expanding 223s, I'm like, I don't think this is going to work. I took it on a hunt and I just slayed stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the bullet's great and made good shots. And part of that is having a gun that's lightweight and easy to shoot or shoot offhand, like you were talking about yesterday. All of a sudden, you're a better shooter.
Yeah.
And you're putting the bullet in the right place and the bullet is performing. And, the animals die just like if you shot it with a 300 Win Mag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Low recoil, too.
Yeah.
Well, recoil is a big thing that people don't
gives
think
you
about.
more confidence in shooting. I think the same thing with silencers. Mm-hmm. Like the sound is horrible.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So silencers are wonderful for that and makes people better shooters.
Yeah, you brace yourself, whether you like it or not. I mean, like I think we were shooting, not you and I, me and one of the editors at Field and Stream, we were shooting a 7 PRC and no break on it. And we were like, I guess the gun can shoot about 1.5 to 2 inches, And then I was like, let me just throw a break on here just for the hell of it. And sure enough,
half inch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing. I mean, and we shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And you think that you can kind of get past that just mentally, but it will affect you.
It definitely does. I mean, even Hiram Mac. Oh, I brought something for you guys to see because I know you like traditional guns and stuff like that. Need somebody, or we'll take a break in a minute. I'll go to my truck and get it. I've got something really great you like.
Cool.
But Hiram Maxim in 1908, 1909 was writing about the best thing for marksmanship was to cover the sound. That's actually what scared everyone, that even, small women could take the recoil of a 30-06 at the time, whatever 30 cal he's using. But if with a silencer and the sound was reduced, that the sound was actually what scared everyone and made them flinch. Yeah. And when you put the recoil and the sound together, everyone thinks it's the recoil. Mm-hmm. But when you eliminate the sound, the guns are easier to shoot and everyone's marksmanship improves.
Yeah.
And I think so. And I think, especially for us with the fixed rifle, which you guys built some, it's a 6-pound gun, 16-inch barrel, 308 or 6.5. There's recoil with the gun. Mm-hmm. I only generally shoot with a silencer, so that eliminates the majority of the recoil. But we'll get RMAs on guns way more than we should. And they'll say, oh, accuracy. Well, we'll shoot the gun 5 shots at 100 yards and shoot 0.6. Mm-hmm. And they're saying it won't shoot under 2 inches. It's like, and then people don't want to hear it. Sometimes it's they're using S&B ammo or something. But the majority of the time it's just they're used to going to a bench and shooting a heavy rifle and it doesn't recoil. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you just can't shoot a light gun. Like you're going to have to practice. But
well, that's been I've heard that forever. You were talking about reading about stuff when I was younger, people would say you can't shoot a lightweight rifle. The problem was the early lightweight rifles were full-size rifles that had been cut down. They wasn't made to be lightweight.
Yeah.
So the balance was way off. And
Straight
it wasn't
stocks.
Yeah, and it wasn't it was the added muzzle blast, which is infecting people, but it was also the terrible balance makes a rifle very difficult to shoot offhand.
Yeah, very true. With like double rifles is an easy way to understand that. Like
they're heavy.
You shoot a 500 nitro that, the length of pull is not right for you. The gun's not balanced, and the muzzle climb and the recoil are horrendous. You get one that fits you, and this is an easy one because most people buy those, get them fitted to them. You get one that fits you, that gun is so easy to shoot with a 500 nitro, and I don't even like a recoil.
Yeah.
So you're right with the balance and stuff.
Yeah, and we talked about Melvin Forbes earlier.
Yeah.
He made the first truly lightweight rifle that was designed to be lightweight, and all of a sudden people could shoot it. And when we were shooting the Fix the other day, it wasn't. It's not a condensed rifle. It's made to be what it is.
Exactly,
and that makes a difference.
Yeah, it should fit you. It should be ergonomic, and just some simple stuff like that. Like the pistol grip helps with control and with recoil and stuff, but just being comfortable with the gun and it fitting you correctly can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So many misconceptions with guns and ammo, and I'll have people tell me. I get a lot of it, especially this time of year, the last few months. I'm going out west, going on elk hunt. Like, what do you recommend? And it's like, well, how far are you willing to shoot? 300 yards. And I'm like, if I'm 300 yards on an elk and I've killed several elk, it's not a tough animal, compared to a lot of stuff like in Africa or whatever. It's a soft animal. 12-inch 8.6, supersonic probably, but I would do it with subs too if you're talking inside 300 because, with the elk hunting, there's generally you're on your feet a lot. So I want a 5-pound gun that's compact because I got to carry the thing. And I don't want a 5-pound 300 Win Mag, like I'd not want to shoot that thing. But 8.6 is low recoiling, great penetration, bullet expands, they work. Yeah, and people I think I need a 26-inch 300 Win Mag. And you could just spend some time at the range shooting and make a decent shot.
It goes back to what Dave said. None of these animals are hard to kill if you shoot them right.
Especially with modern bullet technology too. They don't make a bad bullet anymore, really.
No,
at least that I see on the shelves.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy about the 223. Like one of my favorite bullets in it is a 60 grain partition for whitetails, and he said, "Yeah, that'd probably work on like 150 pound." West Virginia whitetail. And he said, but a big northern 300-pound buck. I said, dude, it ain't twice as hard to kill.
No.
There's maybe an extra half-inch of meat or fat or whatever between it and the heart now. It's not twice as hard to kill.
No. There's not a lot of animals that are hard to kill.
Even buffalo. You shoot them right, they die.
Yeah, and a lot of it could be, the situation with buffalo in my experience is it is a very tough, durable animal. But if you make a good shot and you have penetration, a good bullet, it's going to die. But the difference with a buffalo compared to some other animals, it might go 5 miles before it dies. And it seems like they can lose half their blood and still kill you.
Yeah, well, there's a difference in a buffalo hunting rifle and a buffalo stopping rifle. They don't need to be the same thing.
No, but you're right. Even a buffalo, if you can make a good shot, because most of the things that I see, like spending a lot of time in Africa, a lot of people get very nervous on buffalo hunts and make terrible shots.
I did.
Yeah,
First one I did.
Because you're very close, which you're generally not with other animals. And it becomes obvious that a buffalo, when it looks at you, like it wants to fuck you up. Like it's not like a kudu where it wants to get away from you. Like a buffalo, oftentimes they'll run off when they whinge and stuff.
And then they'll come back sometimes.
And often when you get face to face with them 30 yards, they want to fuck you up. Yeah. And a lot of people, I think, from what I see when I'm there, is, 2/3 of the people fine, make great shots, everything goes good. And 1/3 of the people shoot it in the ass or something at 30 yards. And like, well, now it's mad, and now we have to go find it, and it creates a dangerous situation.
Yeah. Then you got to kill it.
Yeah.
actually, when Ron Spomer was here, he mentioned it too. But like WDM Bell, Karamojo Bell, whatever, he was. I think a thing that people don't do is they don't look at the anatomy of the animal that they're shooting. Everyone, at least from here, thinks like, oh, it's just like a whitetail. And like Karamojo Bell shot however many elephant with 6.5 by 55 until one stomped him out. And then he's like, oh, I'll up it a little bit. But he killed over 800 elephant with 7 by 57. He just knew the anatomy, knew where to put it, and he was braining them.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine how many have been shot with 303.
Oh, yeah.
But and all at 6.
Right.
Elephant, if you get a frontal or a side brain, an elephant is far easier. And with that, if you can not get the old buck fever,
right?
Because you're very close, typically, like inside 30 yards,
and you're scared a little bit too.
Yeah, that's why it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. But for me, I always think, oh my God, I can't mess this shot up because this thing, it's not like a kudu. We don't want to mess that up either because I don't like tracking and all that. But it's like, well, it's not going to kill me,
right? Yeah, especially not at 600 yards.
Yeah, the elephant. It's a different thing, but they're easy. Frontal brain, side brain, and they're even. It's not a tough animal. So even just behind the shoulder, just shoot it in the lungs. Like it might go 100 yards or 2 kilometers, but it's gonna die.
Yeah.
It's not hard. But anything where you can get some penetration.
Yeah, I mean, look at what some of the poachers in Africa are killing animals with. Like muzzle loaders.
Yes,
like zip guns.
Homemade zip guns and shooting elephants with them. Like, so you're right. It's not. Yeah, it's not.
But
difficult.
it's not easy for people to say like, they buy this brand new gun because they saw it on YouTube or read it in an article, whatever. They buy it, they spend $1,200 on it, whatever. They put a nice scope on it. They go to the range. They shoot it. They're not getting the accuracy that was claimed on this thing. It's hard for people to go, oh, maybe I suck and I should improve. It's like, oh, this gun's not worth it anymore.
Well, and before I did this, we'll shoot, when we test rifles, we'll shoot like 5 to 8 different brands of ammo in a rifle.
Yeah.
And before I worked, more closely with guns like this, I mean, I'd get a box of ammo. I think most people are just getting a box of ammo, not really worrying about the weight of the bullets or anything like that, and just running that ammo.
Yeah,
and seeing because ammo's expensive. Like it's not like you can just go out and buy a bunch of different brands.
Yeah.
But and that's where you might get one that doesn't like the rifle, or who knows.
Which is interesting. Yeah. Like actually, that the first time I saw someone really doing that was Ron Spomer. Anytime he has a new gun, he's got 5 different brands of ammo on there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because it's more prevalent than you realize. Is that like some ammo just this barrel doesn't like that ammo.
But a good rifle,
yes,
a good barrel,
right?
We'll shoot it. Yeah, we'll
shoot almost anything well,
right?
And that's like there's a lot of very affordable rifles out there you can buy. But Mossberg Patriot, I've shot all kinds of critters with a Mossberg Patriot. You got to look for the load typically, and it'll find one that'll like. But you get a higher end rifle that's better made. Then the hard part is finding the load it don't like. Quality matters.
Quality, and
sure.
and also with the ammo manufacturers, like I'm never going to build anything for S&B ammo. Like that's just. But if the gun runs and you like it, that's fine. But quality ammo. But us and every gun company can make mistakes, but also the ammo companies.
Absolutely.
I know like Federal's a great ammo company, Hornady's a great ammo company, and there's not a company out there where I haven't pulled rounds out of the box where it's missing a primer or
the round's not seated properly.
Or the neck is folded over. There's just...
So I had this small ammo company reach out to me once and ask me if I would test their ammo and write it up. And I'd be glad to. If it works, I'll write about it. And they sent me a bunch of different ammo. And the guy said, how much do you need? And I said, well, like in 9mm and 223, maybe 200 rounds, because I'm going to shoot a lot of volume to test in reliability, And he said, well, most of the writers want like cases of ammo. And I said, if it ain't going to work, I'll know. I ain't got to shoot a case to figure it out, So he sent me some 223 ammo, and the third round totaled my AR, just completely obliterated it. And I called him, and he stepped up and he replaced my gun and everything. But I told him, I said, I told you, I don't need a lot of ammo to see if it's going to work or not.
No, it's.
We've experienced a lot of it with H6 being so new. In the last 2 years, we've had times where we had to you get a lot of ammo, whether it's 400 rounds, and a company will call and go, hey, we loaded that real fast. You might want to weigh those, and you weigh it, and half of them don't have powder in them.
Yeah, I had a box of 20 have 2 rounds with no powder in them.
Yeah.
And in a box of 20, I stuck 2 bullets in the barrel. Just the primer, just enough to get it into the rifle and good. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, quality control. I don't know. It's hard. When I was telling you guys about showing in the factory, and, we're real fortunate right now, but our growth is really going to be governed by however much we can grow and continue to improve quality. And that's how much we're going to grow. Because right now we have the opportunity to grow 100 or 200%, but there is no way to do that in a year at this size and, maintain or improve quality. Like, you're going to cut corners.
So, and it all comes back to people too, don't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the resource. Like, you give someone $1 billion, you can't, even my company, if I had all the money in the world, we can't grow 200% next year necessarily and bring new products. Like, the resource really is the people. And you can get day labor or whatever, but getting people that are skilled and buy into what we're doing and conscientious. No, I mean, especially here in New Hampshire, we're limited. There's not a ton of people.
Right. New England in general, yeah. One thing I was curious about, and it goes back to the old stories that everyone grew up reading. Is there a difference now, or are you limited into what you can, like an example? Elmer Keith, I think he was a little full of shit every now and again, but like even reading like some of Roosevelt's books or whatever, like Roosevelt will talk about if we saw an animal, we shot it. Like Elmer Keith, I'm shooting animals in the ass. Like, I feel like nowadays, if you were to write about that, people would scoff at it, or there's a shift in like, oh, well, that's disrespectful or whatever. But back in the day, everyone wanted to hear these stories. Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy adventure. Elmer Keith allegedly shot the bear with the 44 his hand load 44 special 600 yards.
Mule deer.
Mule deer. That's right. Yeah. And people, for a long time, granted, I don't think he was truthful about everything, but a lot of people have tried to recreate that shot, and they're like, it could be done. Like, he allegedly hit 2 out of 4 shots on a running mule deer with a revolver, 44. They say it was a 44 special, but it was his hand loads.
I have no idea if he hit the thing or not.
Right.
But I will tell you this. The people in that day and age lived with guns.
Yeah.
We don't live with guns today.
Right.
We play with guns today, most people. One of the things that I don't know if you ought to know about it up here. Have you heard of Morgan shingle?
No.
So back in the Revolutionary War, we talked about this.
This is cool.
Captain Morgan put together a group of sharpshooters, and the legend has it that at 220 yards, they could hit a 7-inch by 10-inch piece of, it was actually a shingle, a roofing shingle, with a long rifle.
Right.
If you do the math, that's damn hard. Number one, you got about 30 inches of drop if you're sighted in at 50 yards. If there's just a little bit of wind, a round ball has no ballistic coefficient, so it's blown off. And then if you look at the sights that are on those rifles, it covered the shingle, right?
Right.
There's a higher probability that the legend was built to scare the British, and it was most likely 220 feet instead of 220 yards. But my point is, those guys, on the average, could probably outshoot all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they lived with their rifle. It fed them, it protected them, and we're just playing with them, You take the Delta guys that you talked about; those guys can shoot.
Yeah,
they live with their gun. No, they don't play with it.
Shoot a lot of rounds.
Yeah. So Elmer was probably a better pistol shot than all of us.
100%. I'm disparaging him, saying he's full of shit, but he was an inspector at the Ogden Armories. Like he shot on teams. Like he was a legit cowboy too. Like he went west in a covered wagon. Like he was, like the stories of him when he got burned and his hand was pinned to his arm. And
Elmer was badass.
Yeah, he was a man.
I've heard stories about the manuscripts he sent in were almost unlegible.
Right, because he had no education.
Yeah, but Elmer was a badass.
Yeah. And it's cool to compare. Granted, maybe some of it was played up for the reader, but like you have Jack O'Connor, the college professor, the refined gentleman, whatever, and then you got Elmer Keith, just a knuckle dragging, real deal cowboy shooting bears in the ass. Like, and then they probably did butt heads, but for the reader, kind of playing up this rivalry.
No question, Jack was smarter, but Elmer probably kicked his ass.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And today we kind of like fact check everything.
Right. Yeah.
It is a thing now. There's always a camera and a video of everything. Back then, you can tell the story however you want. Nobody's there.
Yeah, and either way, it makes for a good story. Like, I mean, people are critical of Capstick, like in Death in the Long Grass. They say, "Oh, some of that didn't have whatever," but it's like whether it did or didn't.
There's good
you
reading,
read the story and you read it numerous times.
I think it's part of me. I don't generally go do any high fence hunting or anything anymore, and you get people who are very against all of that. It just doesn't interest me, but where I'm grateful for it, and I think it's sort of like storytelling, like whatever we can do to get people into hunting and conservation and getting them out, like having adventure, if that's the way you can do it, then I think it should exist, and I love that it exists. Like if I had a more important job and could only be in Africa for 5 days, and I want to shoot a lion and a buffalo and a coot, I want people to have the ability to go do that. Yep. And, the hope is that it'll encourage you to do more hunting. And, like right now at my house, I'm building a 4,000 square foot museum at Crusader Safaris. And every sort of aspirational animal I shoot is full body mounted I'm putting in there. So like bongo, Lord Derby, forest buffalo, savanna buffalo, forest elephant, like mountain yalla, leopard, lion, everything. Because for people who come and do a plains game hunt, I want them to be able to see this and hope that like inspires them to go, because like what I would hope is that we can save the little bits of wild Africa that are still there where you can still hunt, like Kenya. Like what a tragic story that is,
absolutely.
But like northern Mozambique, Nasa and stuff is still wild and all the game is there and you can have that kind of adventure that Roosevelt had or whatever. And it's one of the last places you can do it. And the only way it's going to continue to exist is through the revenue from hunting to protect the animals.
Yep.
And, then it doesn't have to be done in a high fence. Like I got serious about big game hunting during the Trump administration because when they shut off, elephants from Botswana into the States. And that just kills the hunting. So nobody hunts buffalo. The government doesn't give them more permits or elephants. And, now there's a huge overpopulation of these elephants. And then before you know it, it looks like the moon. Every tree is broken down. There's no habitat for other animals. And then the elephants, instead of living to be 60 years old, they're living to 40 because they're eating bark and limbs rather than anything green. And they lose their molars.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And, it's sad. It's like, I said in a thing recently, on this last trip I was on a couple months back, we went from southern Mozambique near the coast, and we drove through Limpopo National Park and Kruger to another area where we're hunting on the other side of Kruger in SA. And it's the saddest thing you've ever seen. And I'm with two PHs that grew up in SA, and everybody in SA that's into, like hunting, adventure, outdoor, when they were young, that's where you went for Christmas vacation, was to Kruger. And it was so sad, like listening to them. They were like, oh my God, this used to be all this canopy. And these are guys that are in their mid-30s. And there are no trees. You don't see kudu anymore. And it's the elephant populations destroying the land. And now Kruger, like from what I saw, and even my novice understanding, if you shoot all the elephants in to where you get to the carrying capacity of what the land should be now, it's 60 years before that looks like it did when those guys were children going, because it just takes 60 years to grow a big tree and they're all gone. And it's like, there is no saving Kruger National Park now in Limpopo. There's just no saving it. It's done. Even if you went and shot all the elephants today and started over, it's so sad to see. So for me, like these wild places in Africa where they still allow hunting, it's so important. And like, that's the whole reason, because I want my museum to tell the story of Africa and hunting. So like, snares in there, poachers' guns and spears and weapons, and the actual story, like the gin traps, and how it is, there is no value of a lion or an elephant to Africans unless they're hunted and it brings money. Like that's it. Otherwise, I mean, like I always say, like if you lived out in the country, there's no way in hell you wouldn't shoot the lions and elephants.
Yeah.
Because they're going to eat you when you go to the river, the lions. Yeah. They're going to eat your goats and your cattle because they're lazy. They'll just jump the fence. And then, you're growing maize to feed the village, and the elephants, a herd can wipe it out in a night. So you have to sleep out there. People do the entire season when the maize is growing, and they have makeshift little shotguns just to scare the elephants off when they come into the fields. So if no one's hunting them, there's no value to those people. And that's what people can't really understand there. And so, that's my hope, is that I can get people to, I never thought about going to Cameroon, to do a bongo or a Lord Derby. And it's like, it's an incredible hunt. Cameroon is wild. It's an exciting time. It's fun. But that's the only place those animals are where you can go hunt them really still. And that's the only way they're going to exist. When they shut hunting down there, the bongo and Lord Derby will be gone within 10 years. They'll all be killed. So, yeah, it's like nobody really gets it. Like we have so much bullshit propaganda in America and Europe about Africa. Yeah. So,
and the other thing about Africa, everybody thinks it's too expensive.
Oh, so cheap.
It's we were talking, I think you're going on a mule deer hunt.
Yeah.
And it's $10,000 for a trophy mule deer hunt.
Yeah. Look at some of the sheep hunts or a moose hunt. Like,
it's just
it's insane.
$10,000 in South Africa on a free range plains game hunt. It could be 7 days all inclusive, and you could shoot 5 to 8 animals.
Yeah. Depending on what they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even kudu, kudu's $1,500.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we could go elk hunt for $1,500
exactly.
and you stay in a great lodge and you have all the alcohol you want?
That's the other thing. So you go on a big game hunt out west, like a mule deer hunt or something, and you stay in an old rundown shack and you eat sloppy joes for dinner, and you got a bologna sandwich for lunch and a bottle of water. And you go to Africa, you spend half the money, and you eat like a king. And you stay in a very nice place.
Have a hot shower.
Yeah, it's just completely different.
I mean, my house there was about $125,000, $150,000. It would cost me over $1 million to build it here. So I live like a king over there for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when we started looking at it and like the labor and everything to build the house, it was like, okay, this is easy. I'll build it. When I don't want to come over anymore, Andrew, you can have it. It's like, it's interesting. Africa in general is people just got to experience. Like you just really can't comprehend. I mean, think about riding around and seeing in one day in the Eastern Cape in the mountains, seeing 25, 30 different species of animals and seeing 500 animals in a day.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is cool is when you bring somebody for their first time and you're riding around in the truck, maybe not even hunting, just looking, and they're going like, "What's that? What's that?" It's cool to see stuff, and you don't even know what the hell it is.
Yeah, in their natural habitat, it's amazing.
Yeah, my grandfather told me a story. We've got a hunt camp. It's like 2 hours out of D.C. in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. And right after they first bought it, my grandfather was real social. He would go and visit with the farmers and talk to them about their gardens and everything. And they would let him hunt. He wouldn't even ask to hunt. He just made friends with them, But he was driving by this one farm, and my grandfather was a farmer too. And he saw this guy out in the middle of a field, a plowed field, putting a little fence up, like a 4-foot fence. And he was like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" And he stopped and he walked over there to him and he said, "Why are you building a 4-foot pen in the middle of your corn patch?" And he said, "There's a deer track right there." He said, "I haven't seen a deer track in 10 years. And he fenced that deer track in and people were coming to look at it.
That's wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories in Georgia where my farm was that, like a generation ago, if somebody saw deer tracks, everybody in the valley, they were going to look at it.
That's wild.
It's interesting to think about that. I mean, we do that now, like in the Eastern Cape, like where my house is in the mountains. They say, "Oh, there's no leopard here," and it's like a few times a year we'll find a leopard track, and so then everybody goes up to see it because bullshit, it's not a leopard track, is it? And that's a leopard track. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even realize that. Like one of the reasons that. I mean, obviously for the adventure, but O'Connor was sheep hunting and going up to BC and stuff. Is there weren't a ton of deer around him, at least in that time. Yeah. So he was going elsewhere. And now the whitetail is the most prevalent game animal in the country. And there's too many turkeys here that you got to
I was amazed when I moved here how many turkeys there are.
We've had guests.
Yeah, the Northeast kind of is like there's a lot of birds like up here and in Maine too, from what I've heard.
Yeah. It's like, how do they survive the winter?
Yeah, they upped it this season too. It used to be like in spring, at least in Maine, in springtime, it was 2 bearded birds in the spring and then 4 of any sex in the fall. And I think it's 5 of any sex in the fall this year.
Really? That many?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you keep mentioning O'Connor. I didn't know him. I never met him. But we were born on the same day. We share the same birthday.
Really?
But I got a good O'Connor story to tell you.
Like that.
So I got to meet Walt Berger years ago, and I kind of wrote his life story at the time. And when he got out of high school, he went to work at a box factory making cardboard boxes. And he would been reading Jack O'Connor, and that was his hero. And he wanted to go on a sheep hunt, but he had no money. Right. So he bought a life insurance policy. And the plan was when it matured, he was going to cash it in and go on a sheep hunt. And he did, which is just pretty cool. And when he flew into camp, it just so happened that Jack O'Connor had left the day before that he got there. And he said that all of the guides and everybody in camp talked so bad about him.
Wow.
Said he was such an asshole. He said, I never read another word he wrote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm growing up, I was, the guys that I would read about for me were guys, I mean, you know them now, but like the Big Woods trackers in Maine, Hal Bloods, Rick Labby's, the Benoits, I mean, and then even Joe Donito over in New York. But so I didn't get into O'Connor until the last probably 5 years and it's all cool to me. Again, I think it started with Capstick. I'm a little skeptical about half the stories I read, but I mean, again, they're good stories. And then speaking of Ron, when he was here, I know he's a big O'Connor guy and it's all interesting to me, especially I grew up 25 minutes from where we are right now. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Utah. I was in the military. I traveled around and I've traveled with Kevin and I've been all over the place. But it's still, the Western hunting is still like a foreign thing to me. I was just in Wyoming a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and that was the closest thing here that I've experienced that was similar to Africa, where every day I was driving the same road and I would see mule deer, pronghorn, whitetail all mixed together, just dozens of them at different times. And I was like, this is like Africa. This is cool. This is interesting. And it's just I've not done I've not done a mule deer hunt. I've not done an elk hunt. I've not done a classic Western hunt. So it's this, and I have been to Africa. So a lot of people are like, oh, I got to go to Africa, whatever. Like for me, it's the thing that's just out of reach right now, but it's like, I got it. So I can only experience it through those writers. And so it's a new thing for me, but
and it's funny you say that, because when we were talking about Field and Stream before, it used to be that's what you read in the outdoor magazines was those adventure hunts out west, but that's went away. You know, now everything is driven by gear.
Well, but not with Field and Stream. I mean,
that's what I mean.
Right, yeah.
And now with Field and Stream bringing that magazine back, you can read those adventures. You're talking about you're reading Jack O'Connor. He's been dead for how many years now, you know?
Yeah.
But now there's another source for that.
Exactly.
You know, with Field and Stream magazine.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I think it's only going to help over the last probably 10 years, the amount of even kids I grew up with. Like, it's funny. I mean, I grew up hunting. Maine has certain laws, so it's like you can't shoot until you're 10 or whatever. Like,
really?
I shot my first deer when I was 10. And then there's just different laws as far as being accompanied and hunting by yourself, whatever. But so I mean, I've hunted my whole life, and growing up, it was almost like I kept it a secret. I grew up in a pretty like southern Maine is not the county. It's not up north. It's pretty populated, pretty modern, whatever. And my whole life, I'm like, well, I don't want to be the redneck. So I'd hunt on the weekends and just not talk about it during the day. And now, as time has gone on, like I grew up, the kids that were in my grade, like I've got a buddy, you know, I knew he hunted a little bit, but again, no one ever talked about it. And now, like, he's a guide up north and kills huge bucks and stuff like that. And I've just seen this kind of proliferation of hunting in at least my generation. I guess I'm a millennial, whatever, I'll be 30 in March. And I see more people getting into hunting, and it's cool. And for whatever reason, whether it's because they just want to try it, or they like the conservation side, or they catch one of these stories through efforts like Field and Stream now, or there's more available adventure stories, and they catch one and they go, I got to try that. Like, And it's weird how we talked about a little at the beginning, the kind of the shift in the cycle of old and new. And like I read Hemingway and Roosevelt and all these stories, and I hear about how things used to be, and now I sit here all day thinking like, man, if I just had a cabin in the rolling hills out west, I had cell service or whatever, Wi-Fi, so I could do my job, but like I'm an hour from wherever, everyone just leaves me alone. I can grow my food, I can eat what I shoot. Like that's what I feel like I'm striving for. Whereas, 10 years ago, it might've been something completely different. And it's interesting that the cyclist is going through. And I think that's a great point to the Field and Stream thing, where it's not gear focused anymore. It's not, because how many times can I read about best hunting rifle under $700 or whatever? Like, and it's the same thing over and over. And yeah, hearing individual stories is way more interesting. And I think it'll inspire more people to get into it.
Yeah.
But, well, you were talking about the different hunting and conservation models. One thing that's nice about the United States is you can experience the hunting at any level you want.
Oh yeah.
You can just buy a 30-30 and go hunting on public land almost in any state.
Absolutely.
Or you can invest in a bighorn sheep hunt, or I mean, it's accessible to everybody at some level.
Yeah.
No, that's like the best thing. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it, but that is a huge thing, because I mean, if that wasn't the case, I don't think I could have started hunting. I mean, I started with a hand-me-down rifle, and we were just going out in the mountains. I mean, and we could do that because that's what you can do here.
Yeah. I do feel like that's something that gets overlooked too with these people that are interested in hunting. I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think like, oh, well, I guess, I can only afford a hog hunt. I got to go to Texas and do a hog hunt because I can't afford the $10,000 mule deer or the $30,000 bear. Not realizing like, hey man, you can have an adventure in your backyard.
You can buy like a $60 license and go shoot and go hunt squirrels, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing that.
Right.
And it's like, you just got to work your way up. And I mean, a lot of it is finding a mentor.
100%.
But a lot of it's also good information, because it's like, you can find a lot of great stuff, just a lot of great stuff out there.
Absolutely.
But the mentor thing, I think, is the biggest problem we have right now.
It's tough.
Yeah.
My mom and we mentioned this the other day. If your dad is the only person in the family that hunts,
right,
it's a hobby.
Yep.
But if mom and dad hunt, it's a way of life.
Right.
And the kids respond to that. Everybody said, "Where's your dad?" "Oh, he's gone hunting." Mm-hmm. Whereas, "Where's your dad?" "Well, me and mom and dad are all going hunting."
Right.
It's a different thing. I coached high school soccer for 5 years, and it was crazy to me the number of young men that did not have a man in their life.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to act. They had no direction on how to deal with people on a personal basis. Nobody was taking them hunting. Nobody was showing them how to adjust a carburetor on a lawnmower. It was just crazy. Right. And it's sad. And they didn't have grandparents either, because they'd got divorced, and this grandparent didn't hunt, and the grandparent that did hunt belonged to the dad that ain't there no more,
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it every day. I mean, I started hunting with my dad, but my parents split when I was younger, and I primarily lived with my mom. But luckily, her father, the epitome of an outdoorsman. I mean, he was a lobsterman for most of his life. He was a carpenter, hunted every day of the week. I tell people all the time, like I remember a period in Maine, you can't hunt on Sundays. Crazy law, changed that. But I remember being younger and asking, we were going to do something. I think we were going to fish or something. I said, "Hey, what time do you want to go tomorrow?" He said, "Oh, we'll go in the afternoon. I'm hunting in the morning." I was like, "It's Sunday." He's like, "Yeah, there's no one in the woods." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So he was hunting all the time. So I grew up around with him, and then every night all his friends would play cribbage in his garage. Every single night, all these guys would all be in the garage. So I grew up reading these stories and then hearing all these old heads tell me, oh yeah, and seeing them every day during season. One of those guys would have a deer in the back of his truck or whatever. So I'm thankful that I grew up with him, and he's been gone for almost 10 years now. But I got to experience it, and even though I didn't get to hunt with my dad every weekend, I could hunt with my grandfather every weekend or every day in the season, and that is something that I'm so, because I know so many kids that didn't have that.
Yeah, you're rich,
right? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and it's wild to see. I mean, in the military, you meet people from all over, obviously, and the amount of kids that I was in the military with that had no. I mean, actually, we have one here at Scotland, Mickelson. He and I were in. He's over at the other building. He does a lot of the scheduling and planning. He and I were in basic training together. We grew up in a similar area, entirely different upbringing. Like he didn't have that growing up. So he's not super into hunting, fishing, all that. Like, and we grew up 30 miles from each other and are the same age. We could have had similar upbringings, but yeah, it's interesting to see that.
I think it's cool though, seeing a lot of people coming into it from the outside.
Absolutely.
Now, like a lot of the hunters I meet today are all coming from backgrounds where they didn't grow up with it.
Yep.
And I think that's really cool because it's like they bring in so many interesting perspectives to it.
Yeah.
And from all walks of life. I mean, it's a really interesting time for hunting. And I think that we tend to focus a lot on having more hunters, like boots on the ground hunters. But what's really cool is just like, even if that one person's hunting from a place that never was around it before, there's just more awareness around it. And like, I've noticed that more. I mean, I live in New York,
right.
And not a lot of the people it used to be that the people I interact with on a daily basis, I'd constantly be explaining that, but more and more I'm finding that people are like, oh yeah, I know about that. And, I've eaten venison before, or it's just something where they're just kind of like, yeah, that's really cool. You do that. It's not the, why do you do that conversation anymore? Yeah, it's really nice to see.
And I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's an interesting part of it where, organic and free range and all this sort of started to overlap. Then all of a sudden it's, hunting makes sense.
Yeah.
If that's what you really want, you want to eat clean.
Yeah.
Don't be buying your meat in the grocery store, my man. Yeah. Like, go get it yourself.
Yeah, it's funny when I go to Africa for a month every year and I lose weight.
I gain weight.
Do you?
You don't. You come back looking shredded every time.
those Xhosa women,
they do feed you.
I'm good to them there at camp, and so they feed me desserts like every whatever. So I don't ever eat dessert here. I go. So it depends. I was even in Cameroon and gained 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm a connoisseur of malva pudding. Have you?
Oh my God!
Is that not the? Why is that not on every restaurant menu in the United States?
Yeah, that is wonderful. So I probably have that like every 2 or 3 days.
Richard has been like campaigning for malva pudding.
It's so good. And then also the bread. Like the Xhosa women make like the most delicious bread ever. And so it's fresh bread every day. And, I don't eat that here.
Yeah.
But they make it, and I just eat like half a loaf of bread every day. But it depends. Sometimes, I do pretty good if we're having hard hunts, climbing mountains there. But other times, it's like I have to put my fat pants on over there.
No, I'm the opposite. I come home, I lose 15 pounds in a month every time. But I don't eat a lot of desserts other than the malva pudding. And they won't make that for me but like once every week.
Well, I remember because I was editing Richard went on a safari when I was still working, editing him, and we were doing this cool thing where it was like a journal every day. Every day he'd send me a journal entry, and then we would do like an Instagram post to that. It was really fun. But I remember like when you'd when the malva pudding day would come, I mean, it was like all right, dude, enough on the pudding. Like we got it. The pudding's good.
Yeah. The most positive journal entry. Yeah. I actually started keeping a hunting journal. And I wish I'd done it from the beginning.
That is cool.
Because I forget so much now. Now it's years, and, every year we're shooting hundreds of animals. Some of my trips, I'll shoot 100 animals. And Rad, thankfully, remembers everything.
Yeah.
And I'll forget about. Now I'm getting to the point he'll show me pictures, and I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess that was us. I guess you didn't Photoshop that.
Yeah. It's funny, not for hunting, but for fly fishing, my dad, on one of my birthdays or something, gave me just a little notebook and said, hey, I have one when I fish, take it when you fish, especially now when I travel too and stuff. And even if I can't do it that day, I'll remember it the next day and write it down. Just where I was, what I caught, what I used, just little stuff. That's it.
Oh, just doing that?
Just having it. And
mine, I didn't put any boundaries on it or anything. And I'll put some of my personal life and stuff in this journal too. But it's interesting to me how it's evolved into what I really like about the hunt is most of it is something that hadn't happened before, or it's just an odd thing about the hunt. Like something felt this way, or this thing happened, or it's like, what was unique about this hunt over the others, and that is evolving into what most of the entries are about.
Yeah, mine was a little different. I've always been fascinated with terminal bullet performance. trying to understand how they work. And up until I got to 500 animals, big game animals I killed, I kept a journal and I drew a picture of where the bullet went in, where it come out, what happened to the animal, and finally when I got
useful.
Yeah, the weird thing, when I got to 500, I thought, I ain't gonna do this anymore. I know all this shit now, right? And now I'm like seeing stuff, and I'm like, how'd that happen? You know, so I should have kept doing it, but
yeah, that's funny. I want to show you guys something. I'll let you see this. But while I'm looking for this photo, what did you both know about Q before you came here?
Yes,
you did
a little bit. I heard I think I saw someone had taken the fix apart on YouTube years ago, like when it first came out, and I was checking that out, but only like I was curious about it. I just hadn't heard a whole lot, you know.
I stumbled on some video that you did where you were just bashing the shit out of something. I can't even remember what it was.
And I thought there's a lot of those.
People fall for it every time. They get so heated. I get such hate mail.
And I thought, what the hell is this all about? And then I went to the website, and then I was, when y'all launched the 300 Blackout, I was at that Remington seminar.
Oh, okay.
I think it was South Carolina, maybe. I don't remember where it was.
I think I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like all the riders came and you could shoot all the new Remington ammo. Yeah. That's the first time I shot 375 H&H.
Really?
And like no riders. Like there was only one box of ammo shot the whole day, and I shot like 12 boxes of ammo.
Really?
Yeah, because we had cases of 375 H&H, and I thought, that's going to be terrible to shoot. I'll shoot one round. I was like, that's easy to shoot. It's a great cartridge, and the reaction on the still I loved. And so when no one was around, I would just shoot that the whole time.
So this is a great 375 story. I told you Finn Algard had been a big influence.
Where is he from? Is he foreign? That's a weird name.
Kenya. Well, his Dutch.
Dutch, okay. Yeah.
But anyway, I got to meet his widow 15 years ago or so. And we just, I don't know, for some reason we just became great friends. And she's a fascinating woman. She would go on safaris with him and do all the skinning and everything.
Yeah,
so
cool.
She was a real deal. I did a hunting clinic in Texas for this custom rifle builder. And he brought his rich clients in, and John Barsness run him through a charging buffalo target. And I run him through like a field walk where we had pop-up animals and stuff. And Barrett was there, and she said, I'd love to shoot this course. And I said, well, let's get you a rifle. And she's left-handed. And with all the rifles we had were right-handed. So she was running it with her left hand and twisting the rifle and reaching over and working the bolt. She outshot everybody there.
Yeah.
Like that. And anyway, so she had brought Finn's 375 that had killed, I don't remember now, 150 buffalo or something. Please. And he had journaled every bullet that he fired out of every gun he tested. He had stacks of spiral notebooks. Every bullet fired out of every gun he owned or tested. And she said, would you like to shoot Finn's rifle? And I said, I'd love to. It's just a Winchester 375 with a 2.5 power old Weaver scope on it. So we went to the charging buffalo target. And they had it hooked to a four-wheeler, and it was on rails. So they would pull this thing by you, and it comes charging down the rails, and you had to try to shoot it once or twice or something. And I got that rifle, and they took off with the four-wheeler, and I shot 3 times, and I swear it was like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was like I just was almost possessed. And we went and looked at the target, and they were 3 shots like that close, right in the heart. I can't shoot that good. It was just like he was there, and that gun runs so smoothly, man. It was a crazy experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Well, you were saying you were the Remington thing when we introduced 300? I forgot about that. I wouldn't remember anything about it except the 375.
I was probably in grade school.
Yeah, so you knew about 300 Blackout then.
Yeah.
But for here, you knew a little bit about it, and you knew stuff about Q. Because you're a little bit of a traditionalist. So the fix is new for you, huh?
I write a lot of hunting traditional stuff, but I got a military and police background, so I kind of go both ways, you know.
Yeah.
Me too. That's not true. I was waiting for you to say it. So.
Yeah. I was trying to be professional.
Yeah, so does Jay.
Now, what was different about your visit? Because you guys you came, you did tours, you hung out with the guys, you went to the range. than what you would have anticipated.
Yeah. So what really struck me, it seems like the culture. I've been to almost every firearms manufacturer and turned their factories. There's a lot of people there working jobs. And it seemed like everybody here was very goal-orientated and dedicated to the process. Instead of just, I got to go to work today.
Yeah.
And then the technology and the research and how you're meshing, well, like you were talking about it earlier, you test it till it fails, and then you work to improve it. And I don't know how much of that's, it's not like you're building, what can we build that will sell, or what can we do to our Remington 700 to make it better this year, or more appealing. You started from the ground up, and you've developed products for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And they work.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's what I hope that we do. And, and I see, like, when you see the online, like, hate for me and stuff like that, and it's a lot of it is interesting how, like, opposed most people are to change or to accept something new. And I see that, and people defend it aggressively.
Yeah. And especially when they don't know about it.
But yeah, it's like when you say, oh, the people are engaged here, and like, we've got a great culture, and because all I read is like, what a dickhead I am.
Well,
and I'm like, well,
I understand that, because if you read comments on social media about the articles I write for Field and Stream, I don't know a damn thing.
It's funny, isn't it? And I would think, well, like, I'm relatively unprofessional, or that's what they'll say, and worse. But I believe we should test and know what our product does, and we should try to build the best. And I want to innovate, and you can't just say it. You got to do it, because like I'll say, like, I couldn't lie to my kids when they were 5. Like, they knew when I was lying. If I make some excuse why they had to go to bed or whatever, and they ask me something, and you tell them some bullshit. They're just like. So I don't think I can lie to my employees. I don't think I can get away with it. And you can't long term. And I don't think I can lie to the consumer. And, not that I'm the most successful guy in our industry. This is my 31st year, and I should know a lot. I've got 100,000 hours doing my job. Mm-hmm. So I should have a lot of experience. And I have a lot more, I think, than a lot of people, because we actually do the testing. And it's only because I want the product. And so many people, like these anonymous people online, it's like they just want to feel good. They don't want to know the truth, or that things will evolve. I've invested in this financially and emotionally, so if there's something that's better or might be better, there might be something not as good. They would rather a manufacturer, like someone in my position that owns a company, just wear a suit, be the Ron Cohen, say the thing online, but stay up in your office, don't know your employees. And half bullshit your customers, and like, people will accept that. And this is where, like, I don't understand a lot of people. I want to know the truth, and like, I'm committed to that. And it pisses me off for any competitor or any company that I even don't compete with directly to mislead consumers. Because to me, that's like stealing. And this is, taking it to the broad end of the spectrum. But, like, you're stealing from the consumer, and you're giving them a bad experience, and you're causing all of us to be distrusted.
Yeah.
And, you can't tell half truths when it comes to the product. You can't do this stuff. And I think, that's what corporations and most companies do, is, as far as marketing, because I love marketing, but marketing's bullshit and it's propaganda. And that's why we do a lot of ours. It's direct comparison, or calling someone out, or testing their product against ours. Because what do you want? Like, I can just tell you, oh, this is the greatest thing. Trust me, because I've been doing this 100,000 hours. That's bullshit.
That's why it's annoying when people say, like, oh, well, they just say it does this, or they claim it does this. And it's like, we don't say anything that we haven't done and proven. Like, any claim that we make or that you make, it's been proven. We have the evidence to show it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, like going to law school for 2 years and dropping out. And it's like having a good attorney, or if you're on, a good attorney won't ever ask a question they don't know the answer to. And that's sort of my approach with this stuff. Like, I do a lot of things that'll shock people, or they think can't be true, but trust me, I'm not 31 years. I'm not going to say it if I don't know already. And, I was late for the podcast because I was back in engineering, And Leo, the kid in charge of our new 5.56 cans, they're going over the testing, and he's got the cans that he completed a test on yesterday. And we're wanting to bring these cans to market, but we have a testing protocol we're going to stick to. And no matter how long it takes, what happens, that's what we're going to do. And if it takes another year, that's what we'll do. And I'm listening to him and the director of engineering and then the VP of engineering, Nick, who you guys were hanging out with, discuss this. And Leo hands me 2 of the silencers, and I'm looking at them. They show me the videos and the pictures. And they got this thing it was clear by the color. They had it about 1,200 degrees or so. And they're talking about the firing schedule. But this is a firing schedule we decided to do that is more difficult than even the standard like military test. But in them talking, I didn't remember this part of it. And I'm looking at the can and, and I thought basically he had shot a quarter of the ammo that he had shot through it at this firing schedule, which is 1 magazine of 1 round a second, then 2 rounds a second, then 3 to 5 shot burst, then full auto 30 rounds through a 9.69 inch barrel. And I misunderstood at first, and I'm like, are you going to test another one? I don't know. This is pretty great. And I even misunderstood. He had done several times what I thought he had done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my Lord, are we really going to continue this? Like, we have broken everyone else's can.
Yeah, halfway to here. Yeah,
25% of the way there. Yeah. And I'm like, well, Ethan wants to continue. I'm like, oh, Ethan. It's like, hey, Leo, we're a for-profit company, my man. This has been going on for years. Like, we're here, but it's not like we have a lot of smart guys here, but it's not like they're, I don't know. John Browning was probably smarter than all of them. Eugene Stoner, but it's like, this is getting out of hand. Yeah. Like, what do you guys? And then you realize, like, all those nerds, they only care about the testing and learning and developing new product. Yeah. They don't ever want to sell it. They don't care. Yeah. And so, it's like me walking into that and then realizing, like, where we are. And it's like, well, it's 100,000 hours. We should be good at this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it was like you mentioned. I mentioned Melvin Forbes to you the other day about how he designed his rifle, and I think that's what's impressed me with the Fix. Melvin started, like I told you, with just a guard screw.
Yeah.
And he could have done anything he wanted.
Yeah.
And you could have done the same thing with the Fix. You could have made it look like somebody else's rifle. You could have done whatever you wanted. But you let the engineering and the performance drive the product.
Yeah. Well, it's probably just like
to a certain goal.
Well, Melvin had this goal, and it was the same way for us. So, like, to me at Remington, I wanted to do this gun. And because they had the 700 for years, it sold 10 million of them. Like, what's the Remington 700 for the next generation? That's the gun we should build. And ultimately, we did it here, and it's the Fix. But it didn't start with, I want a gun to look this way, or when I see guns now where they try to mimic the way the Fix looks. Like the Fix looks the way it did because me and the engineers, we sat down, 6 of us worked on the gun, and it was the first day we started Q. We've been wanting to do this gun for years, so now we have the latitude to do it, and we're starting with a clean slate. And on the whiteboard, we just made the priorities. And then we have notes over on the side of other things we'd like to have. And we followed that, and we stayed true to it, and this is what the product was. Like, we didn't exactly know what the product was going to be. Like, it shocked me that we didn't have a receiver and a chassis that we developed, like, the way to get to this weight goal. So we had to do something new. And that's where Nick came up with this unibody, and we're going to do a one-piece receiver. We have to get rid of the chassis, or we're never going to meet the weight goal. Right. And we ended up with a better product. And that's where still now today, almost 10 years later, it's still ahead of its time. The 45-degree bolt throw, because I wanted straight pull, but I didn't think America was ready for straight pull.
And they still ain't.
I agree with you completely. And it was going to take longer to develop a solid straight pull that wouldn't be big and heavy and clunky and stuff. And now I am so in love with that gun, and it's not because we did it. It's because when I go to Cameroon and can't take our gun, I have to take a Winchester Model 70, which I love. It's like I'll talk shit about the MP5. I love the MP5. It's one of my favorite guns. But, it's like this rifle that I brought to show you. I wouldn't sell this gun for anything. And I don't use it for anything other than just screwing around. It's not practical now. But I love it. But seeing what we achieved, and then the reminder of using the 700, on a few hunts every year, or the Model 70 or whatever. And at the end of that hunt, I'm like, I cannot stand this thing. The long barrel, the stock doesn't fold, the ergonomics suck. There's no detachable magazine. I'm top loading it under, like all the things. Like, okay, that's why we did our gun. It's almost like if you train with your gun and you shoot steel all the time. Well, take your ass back to a paper target and shoot a group.
Yeah. So me and Matt were talking about this, and I probably test 30 to 40 rifles a year. I'm not a rifle expert. I don't know if there is such a thing as a rifle expert, but I'm familiar with a hell of a lot of rifles. And looking at the fix, I'm like, that thing's fucked up. Until I got up here and we started learning the engineering behind it and actually get to use it and try it. I think it's a big jump for the traditional guy to see that ain't gonna work. That ain't what I want. But when you learn why it works the way it does, and then you actually get to try it, you're like, shit, this is a great idea.
Yeah, it's like, what's the goal? To me, it's a utility gun.
Yeah,
and that's what I called it, because I don't even really know how to classify it still. But I call it utility because it's what I'll use for everything. And
it's kind of scout rifle-ish,
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
I mean, I wrote a whole book on that. Scout rifles, yeah,
and I love that concept.
Yeah, and this is just a modern rendition of that,
Yeah. What'd you think about it?
I was surprised. I thought when I first saw it online, I didn't do a lot of digging into how it worked or anything like that. And like Richard, I test guns too. It was like with pistol grip, bolt gun, chassis guns, I've seen a lot of them in the recent years. A lot of the stuff I've identified with them, as far as my issues with them, come down to like shooting offhand. Where I feel like that's something that I still value a lot, especially hunting in thicker woods.
Oh yeah.
Those rifles are great, but they're designed for a very kind of like controlled shot of, okay, there it is, lay down, shoot it. But what I was surprised about running the gun on the range was how fast I could shoot with it. Mostly because of the AR style controls were there. A lot of times you had to pull your thumb around and flick off that safety on a bolt gun trigger. But yeah, running it fast, running it off hand was very comfortable, very easy to shoot. And I think also like it's funny, it was the design process, like a little bit of background on me, like, going to art school, we had an engineering school attached to us as well. And I was really interested in firearms back then. And so I would dig into like all that. I would find these makers that I really liked, like, I'd look up John Browning, or like even guys like Paris Theodore that were just making off the wall stuff.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his too. I have both models of that.
Cool,
such cool guys.
Yeah, and so, but coming here, I didn't know what to expect, and I wasn't like expecting that, but I was like, wow, I'm like in a place where there's some really cool off the wall stuff like going on, not off the wall impractical, but just like I people testing real ideas, and that was a cool thing to see.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, that's awesome, because that's the engineering culture I hope to have. And like I was telling you guys, over time we've developed a real engineering team, and companies try to poach them every week. Yeah. And so creating a place where they don't want to leave, but also the culture. But then also I have to let them do these things. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have this concept, well, let's test it. And even if it doesn't turn into a product, they only get smarter.
Yeah.
They're only getting more experienced and better. Yeah. And we're better at testing. And then all the new guys that come in, they're learning this. Because you see with our engineering department, and correct me if you guys think I'm wrong, for a firearms company, it tends to be two kinds. There's like the guy who designs something and he has a small gun company and he does all of the stuff. And then there's bigger gun companies where it's all divided up. And, for us, we have, 17 engineers with 90 employees. Mm-hmm. And then they all work on stuff together, collaborative. Like nobody can take anyone else's job here and create this whole competitive, let's be driven, do new things no one else has done, but we're all better working on it together. Mm-hmm. And like, we don't get that bullshit between engineers at a company where...
Well, and I don't think you have the price point engineering.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's the other thing. Okay, this is a great idea, but it costs too much, so we can't do it.
And then it gets watered down, or it gets like one other team gets a hold of another part of it. I mean, I don't know exactly how other companies work, and other companies make great guns. It's not a knock on them, but it's rare that you get to see just like a group of like human beings coming together and being like, let's make this thing with this common goal instead of having these little siloed side projects.
The scout rifle thing is kind of a good analogy, because when Cooper first started writing about that, everybody was trying to build this rifle to his specifications. And what ended up was a lot of people had a lot of ugly guns that just didn't friggin' work. And then finally Steyr kind of come in and centralized all his concepts. I still think they missed the mark with it. But what y'all did here is you took a concept and built to that concept.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you stick to the goal, and I don't enjoy business very much, but also, I've been fortunate, and I don't have to answer to anyone, and I could fund it, and I believed in what we were doing, and we're going to do it, and then it's my job to explain to people why they should want it and why they should own it. And I'm not great at that either a lot of times, but it's like when I was talking about lying to my kids, like I can't fake passion to my employees. They see right through it. The engineers, I can't talk, you can't talk it and not walk it. And they, if I say, okay, anything you guys need, and they want $1 million 3D printer, it's like, well, I can pay myself this year. I get them this printer. And they get it. I've never turned them down for money. And over time, they have confidence in you, and they become loyal. And, we work good together. It's like, no, we're going to accomplish this. And it's not that we didn't fail 100 times with the Fix or with the Boombox or the Honey Badger, 300 Blackout or 8.6 Blackout. It's just like, we're not going to stop. We can solve these problems. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if we're not working to a price point, when you do that, when you have an imaginary important date where you have to release something or a price point you want to hit, I always believe there's room for innovation and the best. And, as long as I can continue to do that, that's what we're going to do. And that's what inspires those guys. Like, I love Savage. I love Ruger. I even love SIG to some degree, but it's these guys can't get, they're ruined now. They can't go somewhere where we're going to compromise, the integrity of the product or not do the best thing because it's a little too expensive.
Yeah. I'll admit, I've never seriously considered an SBR for a hunting rifle until I saw that Fix, until I actually shot it. Never considered it.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful, because why do you want a long gun if you don't need it? It's a hindrance. It's nothing helpful about it. And, most people still don't understand. It's like the only reason you generally want a long barrel is linear velocity, and that's just if you're shooting far. Mm-hmm. And people just don't want to accept some basic, just real scientific principles in this. And but you have to be honest.
But you got to have a 300 Win Mag to kill a whitetail, right?
Yeah. Well, it kills
you got to have a 24-inch barrel 300 Win Mag to kill a little whitetail.
Speaking of that, pull this out of here if you don't mind.
This is older than me, I can tell. Right?
Pretty close.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, wow.
But this is the best part. So that's an original Maxim silencer on that. That's an older version of the Maxim silencer. That's a 1921. So they used to originally all the 1910, 1909 models. They were eccentric, where you could still see the sights on everything, and interrupted threads, which was the first quick detach, and the bulk of the silencer would sit below the bore. And it's very difficult to make. So we went to this one, which is a concentric silencer in 1921. But that's a 30 caliber rifle silencer that you can disassemble to clean and stuff. But yeah, so I've got Oh yeah, it works.
Really?
So I've got probably the largest collection of Maxim silencers in the world, and so I've got a lot of guns set up for them. 22s, like I just got in this past week. I still buy them today. Winchester 63, which I didn't have, that was with a Maxim silencer, and I just got in a 1895.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, Winchester with one. So that's like what, because on a lot of the paperwork on the stuff that Roosevelt took to Africa. He liked the 1895, but he had a and what was that, 405?
Yeah.
He had 2 and 405.
And he took 2 Maxim silencers with him.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he used them.
I've never seen a picture of him with them, but on like all the documentation of the inventory.
I've seen that, but I didn't notice that.
There's 2 Maxim silencers.
I wonder if they were for you think they were for the 405?
One definitely was for the 405.
Yeah.
It was a 40 caliber. And I don't know I don't remember if they marked the other one or it was a 30 cal. But
because the only other guns he had, he had some Fox shotguns and he had that double rifle, that 500, 450.
Springfield.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He had the 03.
Yeah.
Or a couple of them.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Did that come together? Is that how you found it?
I honestly don't remember with this one. I want to say it didn't, but it could have. I've had this one for a long time.
These are cool, but what's almost cooler is like you have all the mailers and stuff that they came into. That's super cool.
The mailing tubes are actually more rare than the silencers, which the silencers are incredibly rare. But I think I've got 20 or so of the original mailing tubes.
Yeah, with stamps on them and everything still.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so those were, they're 110 years old.
You just mail them to your house too.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, and they blued it. It looks like they just blued the whole thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, the eccentric models are really interesting. And what's interesting about these is everyone, the companies, really lies about silencers. And I get it because it's like just a tube and they're very expensive in America. And we have really great technology in the States because, it's a $200 tax, the barrier to entry, background check, and all that. Every good silencer that is still made today is taken from this. Like technology that he developed in here, the slanted sidewall, the scoop, and everyone still uses it.
Are there rubber wipes in there or anything like that?
No, it's all coined steel baffles.
Amazing.
Yeah. These will probably come out still. Let me see. Yeah. We'll just remove this again.
I wonder what that sold for.
Originally they were $5 in like 1910 for the.
So what's that translate to?
No, I don't know. Probably a fair amount. It's about the cost of the gun, oftentimes. Yeah. But in 1921, they were getting closer to $10.
Does that translate to $1,200 today? You think?
I don't know.
I figured it would be like a couple hundred.
I'd have to Google it, but I don't know. So they were close to the cost of a lot of the guns. Yeah. So it might be $1,000 today.
Right. Yeah. I found a inventory of my great grandfather's property when he passed away, and what do you think the most expensive thing he owned was? I can't remember the year. It was late 1800s.
Oh, geez.
I figured it would be some sort of tool like farming equipment.
It was a horse.
Oh, yeah.
It was the most expensive
tool,
thing
like you said.
Yeah.
Well, that was his car.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the visit.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. It's been great.
Thank you for coming up. I know this is out of the norm for you guys, but we're real grateful. And
we're not so bad for Yankees.
Speak for yourself.
Well, we'll see.
But no, thanks for having an open mind with the gun and the company. Yeah. And I hope, we learned some stuff from you guys, and I hope it was mutual.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And anytime I get to spend time with guys that are passionate about hunting and conservation, that's wonderful for me. Yeah. And storytelling now, like I used to not think much about it, but then I started realizing, the number of people in my life that when I go to Africa for 2 or 3 months and come back that just want to let's have a beer and you tell me all the stories. Like what's that? That people that have really great lives. And it's, as I try to convince everyone, my son was texting a few minutes ago, and all I want to do is take him to Africa nonstop, because I understand it's going to change your life and it's going to change your trajectory. It's going to help you to make decisions.
Yeah.
As a 21-year-old punk, he's going to make decisions that will enrich his life the more time he can spend there.
I took my boy when he was 14. He's been every year since. Shot a buffalo when he was 17.
Oh, that's badass.
And you said it. He's 24 now, and he's a 40-year-old man. I mean, from a maturity standpoint.
Well, wisdom too. Like Africa will make you wise.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
The pHs there. It's like that one guy running the line. He was like 21, and you think that they carry themselves a little differently because they hadn't had to grow up a little faster there.
Yeah, you're a man at 21 there.
Yeah.
Like my son, he's still a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but So anyway, it's great. I'm so excited. The printed journal's back now. I can't wait to see that. And you guys, please keep it up, telling the stories and everything.
Thanks.
Just to inspire people to be out in nature and to hunt and have adventure and for us to conserve this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited now to see what the hell y'all do next. Honestly.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, I think next we're going to spend a couple years completing our product lines, the silencers and the gun product lines, and then kind of go from there. And in essence, there's still a lot of work for the engineers in completing the product line, but they've been sprinting a marathon. And so my hope's to give them enough stuff to keep them really interested, but a bit of a break too. Mm-hmm. And completing the product lines for the company to continue to grow, I think, responsibly, and for us to focus on the operations and continued quality and improving that. But thank you. I can't wait either, because the discussions are, the next thing. Because for us, we've got 1,000 years of things we want to do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, how can we make an impact in the industry and, and a legacy for all of us. And then how can we really, and I think we've gotten good at picking these niches where there's nothing and there should be something and doing that. So I'm excited about it. Like we were talking about, if all we wanted was money, we make a 9mm honey badger or a 9mm compact pistol, but it doesn't change anything other than make us richer. And, how can we continue to do something that's interesting to us? Because, everybody here does okay. Like, everybody could have more money, but it ain't going to enrich your life. Mm-hmm. But doing something like that, and like we were talking about, I'd love to do 22s. I don't think we have any great 22s in America, really, that have been successful compared to Europe. Mm-hmm. And I could just think of so many projects. And it'll be timing, and we're doing a lot of military stuff now, which is really where our heart is in a big way. And if when that stuff comes up, that always takes priority. So it's part of the great thing to me is I try to, as it's a real company and I'm responsible for a lot of families, to have a roadmap, but to have the ability to kind of pivot and do something when it comes up and makes more sense.
Make your own intersection down the road.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah. Like if my life were all planned out and I know what it's going to be, I have no interest in that. Yeah. I love the adventure. And, and that's part of probably the competitive spirit too. Is like, okay, well, that's fine. We're going to do this thing now and we'll do it the best. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting. My hope is that it's interesting and it's innovative and it makes a difference for people that enjoy shooting or hunting or military and law enforcement. As long as we do that, I think we're going to be, stoked. So,
cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Jay.
That's it.